welcome to the In Good Company podcast for Manchester TV, part of the local TV network. And yes, we've got we're a bit depleted this week, guys. But we've got the dream team, as Ed said before. We've got the creme de la creme, as I commented. And this is Ed's second go at it, and he's become more regular than anybody else now at the moment. Ed, how have you been, mate?
Yeah, I've been good, thanks. How have you been?
Yeah, I mean, we had a bit of a break, haven't we? Do you sort of try and forget football when there's an international break, or do you do anything else? Or
I keep an eye on England and a few of the other matches, obviously, that have City players playing in them. But I'm more of a club football fan, definitely.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, I didn't watch any of the England matches. I usually do because obviously I get invited onto a couple of pods to talk about England and stuff. But I was sort of a bit busy last week, so I couldn't do it anyway. So right, anyway, let's talk City. Let's talk. We're back in Premier League action. Of course, we'll go into a bit more detail. We've just, I won't say stuffed Burnley. We've beaten Burnley at Turf Moor just by a couple of goals still, same as last season, wasn't it? I think we beat them 2-0 the same last season. We scored 2 first-half goals, and that was it. And we sort of more or less echoed that this season. Just your brief thoughts on the game, Edward. What are your thoughts? Obviously, with a busy week coming up, what were your thoughts on how we played?
I think it was important, obviously, to get the win with, like you say, what's coming up with the 2 games against Atletico and Liverpool. It was important to get this first game out of the way, especially after international break as well. You want to get back to winning ways. And obviously, the pressure was on after Liverpool had won earlier on in the day. So we needed a no-nonsense victory. That's what we got. I don't think anyone was stretched too much, injuries, that sort of thing. So that was a positive as well. I think the early goal helped because it seemed to settle the nerves, and you couldn't have wished for more, really. Maybe a couple of goals in the second half. But
yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I mean, I thought after that early goal, I thought we might score at least 3 or 4. But it's one of those games where we go in ahead at half. So even if it was only 1-0, I think we could fairly control that game. Obviously, as I said, we will talk about it in a minute. But I was quite confident at half time, obviously 2-0 up. But I was a little bit worried that we're missing a lot of chances. And obviously, we'll probably talk briefly about it. But again, I mean, these missed chances are probably going to sting us in the end. I mean, it's okay. It's happened before, hasn't it? Crystal Palace, Southampton, where we haven't managed to score goals that we've created and stuff like that. But let's talk a little bit more detail anyway, Edward, about the game. Interesting team. I'll just have a quick go through the Burnley team first. It was interesting because I think Sean Dyche appeared to have one eye on his next game. He's sort of not given up on this one, but he sort of had a little eye on the next game. And a few Burnley fans were a little bit despondent with a couple of the players that were playing. Westwood and McNeil were getting a little bit of stick asking why the hell were they playing, stuff like this. So they weren't impressed as Burnley fans. But it was Pope, Roberts, Tarkowski, Long, Taylor, Lennon, Cork, Westwood, Brownhill, McNeil, and Weghorst, of course. I think he got a pair of new elbows for Christmas because he enjoyed using them in this game, didn't he? But we won't go on too much about that. But the interesting one, Edward, Cornet or Cornet, so I called him Cornet by a little thing, but he was missing from the actual start in the game. He was on the bench, of course, but what was Dyche having one eye on the Everton game, which follows this one?
I think definitely. I mean, when you're in the relegation battle, you've obviously got to focus on the games like Everton and those sort of opponents where you actually need to get the points and stop them from getting the points as well. And when you're coming up against City, you have a chance, but you don't have as much of a chance against your Everton. So I think he wanted to keep some of his star players back so that they're ready for that game. But with Cornet in particular, cracking player, and obviously he's caused City a few problems when he used to be at Lyon. So I'm surprised he didn't put him in because he knows that he can frustrate Pep's City's back line. So it was a weird one, but probably one eye on Everton, I think.
Yeah, I think he got weirder with the fact that he actually brought him on. They were 2-0 down. I don't understand the logic. If you're not going to play him from the start, what is the point? Perhaps he might have thought he could have got back into it. He certainly hadn't give up give up on it by half time. So perhaps he thought he might get something in the second half, and City weren't that good. So perhaps that was his psyche. Obviously, we'll talk about the second half in a little while. It didn't take long to get a goal for City, Edward, but we had a little bit of a scare first. A flying header that sort of just zoomed past Ederson post. Was Ederson going to get to that header? I'm not too sure the guy who headed it, but from about the 18 yards out, when you looked at it on replay, it wasn't that far away, was it? And Ederson's face, I think, said it all.
Yeah, I think they kind of caught us off guard a bit. You never really expect a fast start from clubs like Burnley against City, because you don't really expect them to come out and attack City. So it was a bit of a shock. And I don't know if Ederson would have got to it, but we'll say he did, because he didn't have to.
We'll say he had it covered.
He always does.
Well, it was only a couple of minutes later, Ed. A quite impressive goal. What's your memories of that goal?
Yeah, it was a nice build up to it, especially. But I think the strike, especially from De Bruyne, it didn't, from that range and the way he went to kick it, it was almost like
was Pope at fault? Do you think? Did it sort of go through him? I couldn't. I mean, it seemed to go. I know it went high up, but Pope's a big lad. Could he have done better?
He's a good goalkeeper, obviously, and you expect more from him. But it is De Bruyne, and it was a good shot. I didn't. What I'm saying was, I didn't expect it to go as high up as it did, to be honest, because the way he motioned to kick it, I thought it was going to be along the ground, and then all of a sudden it just flew up out of nowhere. So I think that probably caught the keeper off guard as well. But good goal, but nice build up as well to it, I think.
Yeah, so it's no surprise to see KDB in the City lineup, of course, the team that started. Obviously, Sterling was back in the team. What are your thoughts on that? Obviously, you put Sterling, Grealish, and Foden up front. It seemed to work pretty well. I mean, it was Sterling was certainly involved in the goal. Rodri was obviously back as well. An interesting thing with Gundogan as well, hasn't it? He put Gundogan. I'm trying to say Gundogan or Gundogan. Gundogan, isn't it? I'm supposed to pronounce it. So it was interesting, because I thought, even though only 5 minutes in, I thought a lot of key players were putting some good little balls together quite early doors, to say, apart from that early shot from Burnley. Were you impressed with that City team? Did you think anything shouldn't, any changes to that team that weren't in it?
Yeah, I was quite happy with the team. I can see why he started Sterling and Grealish, because I can't really see either of them playing midweek against Atletico. So I think it's all about rotation, especially when you've got so many high-profile matches coming up against the same opponents in a condensed amount of time. But yeah, as for the Burnley match, I think it was a good lineup, very creative looking.
No Mahrez, was there? What did you think about that? Was he being saved? Obviously,
definitely. Yeah, I wasn't expecting to see Mahrez at all. I think he's definitely a player that can frustrate Atletico and unlock their defence. And I don't think we needed to call upon him against Burnley, to be honest. So yeah, I was happy with it. I mean, there'll be certain players, I hope, like De Bruyne and Foden, that should be playing in a lot of the matches over the next couple of weeks. But I think your Grealish's, and probably Sterling, will get a run out against, English opposition. They'll probably get Liverpool as well. But I think he did have one eye on Atletico, whether he'd admit it or not.
Yeah, I think he did. He'd probably say he didn't, but obviously I think he did. And I think Rodri was involved in that first goal as well, early doors. And it was Rodri who seemed to be getting a few shots, not the greatest shots. He had one saved. I think he had one that sort of went wide when he perhaps should have done a little bit better. Typical. I used to call them the Rodri's Rockets, but I mean, when they stopped going in the net, I stopped calling them them, because he hardly ever succeeded with them. But Rodri was playing. I thought Rodri was playing pretty well from an attacking point of view. I wouldn't have minded KDB firing a few of those shots in rather than Rodri, unfortunately. Weghorst, or whatever he's called, I mentioned him earlier. He got booked. I'm looking at that and thinking VAR should have perhaps sent the guy off. I thought he knew exactly what he was doing, and he led with his arm to definitely, again it was Rodri, wasn't it, to injure Rodri. What are your thoughts? I thought VAR should have had a look at that and asked the referee to have a look, because he knew exactly what he was doing. And is it because he got booked? Obviously VAR didn't get involved and think it was serious enough?
Well, first of all, on the Rodri rockets, I'd like to point out that one of his few rockets actually did come against Burnley at Turf Moor, if you
Yeah,
remember.
yeah,
It was a
right.
season or two ago, so maybe he was trying to channel that after his Everton
Well,
goal early
Walker
this
was having a
season.
goal, but he never scored against Burnley either.
Yeah, no, no. But then as for Weghorst, I think he's one of those crafty players. I mean, Fernandinho sometimes is like that for us with the tactical fouls and stuff. And I used to watch Wolfsburg quite a lot in the Bundesliga, and obviously Weghorst was there for years, and he did do that quite a lot there. So I think that's maybe one of the reasons Burnley saw it, what quality they saw in him, as well as his goal scoring ability. I don't know if it was a red card, but like you said, I was surprised that they didn't check it, bearing in mind they've checked things that were a lot not as bad as that, shall we say, previously. But yeah.
Well, that was about 14, 15 minutes. 16 minutes, it's a shame Mahrez wasn't on the pitch because KDB tried one of those corners right to the edge of the 18-yard box. Unfortunately, it was Gundogan was on the edge of the box, and his shot, unfortunately, went wide. I mean, obviously, that's the sort of thing where Mahrez scored, didn't he? It was against United where he scored on the edge of the box. So it's obviously something we worked on in practice. But it was 25 minutes. And it was 2-0. A little bit fortunate with this one. What are your memories of that? The second goal.
I'd say it was not carbon.
Good build up, but it was a fortunate that we actually scored it the way it went in.
Yeah, I'd say it wasn't a carbon copy, but it was certainly very similar to the first goal. The build up to it, and then the shot. It seemed very similar. But yeah, it was a good goal. It's nice to see Gundogan always on the score sheet, and obviously this one was a special one for him because of what it meant for the records. Yeah, good.
Do you like me want to see Gundogan sometimes put his foot through it more? He always tries to pass them into the goal, doesn't he? Have you noticed that? And obviously we got away with that one because it took a slight deflection and poor Pope was left sort of flat-footed. It sort of went past him. But he had another one, didn't he? Was it the second half where he tried to side foot it in again and Pope caught it to his left, I remember. I mean, Gundogan, you know, I can understand what he's trying to do, and it does work, and he scores a few goals. But sometimes, I just want him to put his foot through it. I mean, what do you think? I'm not going to slag Gundogan off. He doesn't play that much, and he does score a few goals. He doesn't let us down when he does play. So, but yeah, we got the goal, as I said. But again, he just tried to side foot it in. Would you like to see him put his foot through it a little bit more than like I would?
Yeah, I mean, like he's obviously a very technical player, so he's used to his passing, his shooting, all of it, not putting too much pressure on the ball. I think he took a lot of penalties before he came to City, especially at Dortmund, and all his penalties tended to be side foots. They didn't tend to be, like a rocket like Toure had scored or Kane or someone. But yeah, I think last year when he had a bigger role in the team through De Bruyne and other people's injuries, and he got pushed forward, and of course he went on that scoring run that was immense. A lot of his goals then were side foots, but he did score some when he put his foot through it. So yeah, I think sometimes it's up to the player's discretion, isn't it, whether to absolutely welly it like Rodri was doing. See, you've got me calling him Rocket now.
Rocket, yeah, I've got it. It's good. It'll catch on.
It does. He needs to be scoring more for that nickname. But yeah, Gundogan, I can't say a bad word against him because of what he did last year. So yeah, and he's the top scorer in German in the Premier League now. So
well, there you go. Yeah. We do get these records, don't we? I think it's 34, isn't it? 34 Premier League goals for City, overtaking Ozil, of course. There's always a chance Ozil might come back at some stage. How old is? I don't know how old is he. Might come back to the Premier League and get his record back, but I
don't think he'll be coming back to.
You never know. Never say never. Never say never. You know, these things happen. Yeah. So it's nice for Gundo to have that. I thought Burnley, apart from that very early chance, and he had a sort of header from a corner that sort of floated wide. I think that was about it. They were pretty useless as an attacking force, I think, Burnley in that first half. They didn't really worry us at all. Sterling had a good chance over his shoulder, which I thought he looked at the keeper coming out towards him about 41st minute, this one. And he sort of saw the keeper coming, but I thought, because he saw the keeper coming, he was a little bit scared, and he sort of, rather than just try and flick it over him, it was difficult, don't get me wrong, but he sort of took his eye off his heel slightly and shinned it, didn't he? You remember that one where he sort of shinned it high and wide? That would have been a cracking goal. I mean, it was absolutely superb. Foden, I think, had chipped it over, hadn't he? Bolden had chipped it over to him. But Sterling had a good game. Yeah, I mean, Sterling had been worthy of his place, I think, in that first half. Edward, would you agree with that?
Yeah. I think Sterling. It's always a case of right place, right time, but not always right finish. But yeah, he certainly was trying.
Yeah.
As always, you can't
I
fault
think
his work ethic.
most of our danger to Burnley came through Sterling in that attacking mode. I think Burnley struggled, but Burnley aren't 19th in the league because they're a very good team. So, in all fairness, it probably if you can't have an half decent game against Burnley, perhaps you shouldn't be doing it anyway. So 2-0 at half time. I think we were all happy with that. But we probably thought we were going to get a couple. There's not much to say about the second half really. Obviously, our biggest worry came on, didn't he? Kompany appeared for the second half, which had a couple of City fans on Twitter saying, "Oh God, no," which obviously was a bit worrying. But what were your thoughts on that? Did you think, "Oh well, we'll be okay. He can't do it on his own"?
I still have nightmares about Lyon in the Champions League, but other than that, no. I thought we'd be fine. Although there were moments, I'm sure you'll go on to cover in the second half, where you thought nearly went in that.
Yeah, they had a purple patch about 20 minutes in or something like that. Yeah, let's go on to that. I mean, obviously, I thought City were a bit sloppy the first 15 minutes. It wasn't really because Cornet had influenced that much. I just thought we looked a bit less, in the past when we have a slow first half, we up it in the second half. But this time we had a pretty good first half. We took early leads and we sort of, I thought we took the gas foot off the pedal just a little bit. Foden had a great chance, a little clever flick on about 49 minutes. If that had gone in 3-0, it would have been all over anyway by then. But Foden had a flick, and then obviously I think he KDB had another good chance, but it was easy. KDB fed Gundogan with that one I was talking about in the first half, where he again just tried to side foot it into the far corner. This was all like in the first 5 minutes of the second half, but we looked a bit shaky. And then, as you said there, Burnley had a couple of interesting chances. I wouldn't say they were clear cut, but there was a bit of hesitation between Laporte and Edison about the 56th minute. Laporte seems to be waiting for a shout that didn't come, but surely if he doesn't get a shout, he should just clear the flipping thing, shouldn't he, Eddie? He shouldn't be waiting for it. If he don't get one, he should he shouldn't just be waiting for it. He should clear the danger, and he didn't, did he? It nearly gave him a good chance.
Yeah. There's sometimes a breakdown in communication when Laporte's playing. I've noticed between him and Edison. It's happened a few times over the years, but I think they're under a lot of pressure at the minute with the injuries to Diaz and Stones, and obviously Ake, as brilliant as he was, isn't a regular starter. So I think Laporte's under quite a bit of pressure at the minute. But then again, he's a Premier League footballer at England's top club, so he should be able to deal with it. And in scenarios like that, as you said, he knows what to do, and you can't be giving them even a chance to come into it. It was a bit disappointing to see.
I mean, a couple of minutes after that, we had that incident where obviously Ake ended up doing a similar thing that he did a few games back, where he had to clear it at Arsenal, wasn't it? Where he had to clear it off the line. But I was a bit confused as to whether it was offside. Obviously, I think the line did flag eventually, so it was offside, but obviously they snuck him slightly behind, and they were saying, I didn't watch it back, that it was quite close. So if it gone in the net and gone to VAR, it might not have been offside, it might have been a goal. But Ake was there again. I mean, Ake, you just mentioned him there. He very rarely lets us down. He certainly didn't look out of place yesterday. Of the partnership, I thought Ake was the better of the two of him and Laporte yesterday.
Yeah, I think Ake gets a lot of disrespect, not just from City fans, but from fans all over, because they think we just signed him for a lot of money to be a bench player. And I mean, when you think how many times City's centre backs have been injured in recent years, whether it's Diaz, it's Stones, Kompany, and we had to rely on Otamendi and like putting Fernandinho at centre back when he was 36 a couple of years ago in Liverpool with the league. You never want to be in that scenario again. So a signing like Ake was really smart. And not just that, but he has years of experience in the Premier League, being captain of a team like Bournemouth, who every year, apart from that last year when they finally went down, overperformed, but deservedly overperformed. And I think a lot of it came down to him as a leader, being right at the back, solid at stadiums like Burnley and tougher games like that. And I think he's brought that into City, which a lot of the City players didn't have, because a lot of them haven't played for lower teams in the Premier League. So for somebody who knows the nitty gritty, to come into a team like City. I didn't mean to rhyme that, but it really it gives them an extra edge, and I think
Yeah.
for that reason, Ake is welcome in our team any day.
Yeah, I mean, I've always banged the drum for him. I think he does a good job. He's not perfect by any means, but I'm sorry, Diaz and Laporte aren't perfect, and just John Stones isn't perfect by any means. So I think he does get a bit, as you say, very unfair criticism. After that, I don't think Burnley had that much. In all fairness, we probably should have scored another goal or two. We had a few half chances. Foden had a great chance on the edge into the box, didn't he, where he just blasted it high and wide, which is a little bit worrying with crucial games coming up. We've got to sort of take these half chances, and that's what they are. But you've got to at least put them on target. If you're blasting into the stands, which Rodri and Foden and Gundogan did as well. I mean, high and wide or wide, it could come back to sting us. Grealish I thought Grealish was a little bit quiet yesterday. Again, another guy I sort of stick up for a lot. I thought he had a quiet game yesterday. Grealish, I don't know if you'd agree with me, had a bit of a mistake in the second half where he lost it. He said he got fouled, but the referee didn't give a foul. Fortunately, Ederson made a comfortable save at the end of it. But thoughts on Grealish yesterday? I don't think he sort of put himself up the pecking order for a couple of big games coming up.
Yeah, I think Grealish and Foden, both of them have had a few games recently where they've looked very. I don't want to say the word average because that's not a reflection either of the potential of the players or how they perform usually. But recently they haven't looked like the top players in the team, which for Grealish it's been a problem all season really. But for Foden, as you mentioned, it's a bit worrying heading into the two games against Atletico and Liverpool. Because a lot of the shots he's taking are just not hitting the target. And again, I always advocate for Grealish to play midfield and Foden to play on the wing, but Pep always seems to move it round. But yeah, it doesn't fill you with confidence. But then, of course, you can rely on Mahrez, Gundogan, De Bruyne to contribute to the goals as well. So I don't think it'll be long until they're back firing again.
Yeah, well, we saw Jesus come on. He looked lively when he came on. Again, probably could have had a couple of goals, hit the post. Probably should have done better with the rebound late on it. At least hit the target, mate. I think he hit it about 10 yards wide. So after, I think the one that hit the post took a slight deflection. If he hadn't took the deflection, he might have even beat Pope. I don't think Pope was expecting it. So Grealish Jesus looked a bit lively. He came on for Foden. Of course, Bernardo came on and give KDB a rest. Bernardo's another one who will have a big part to play in the coming weeks, no doubt about that. He was given a rest on the day as well. So that was about it. I can't think of anything else in that second half. Ed, can you to sort of liven us up? Or, as I say, apart from scoring, we should have scored perhaps 3 or 4 goals in that game. Job done, and we move on, and that's all we can. We've saying that a lot, I think, this season as far as City are concerned. We know we've just done enough to win games, and we did what we had to do, and we won it. Is that your thoughts on it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we got that late scare. There's a couple of late scares where they almost looked like they were going to pinch one, and obviously if they score around the 86th, 87th minute, you never know it. Knowing us, it could be 2-2 by the end of the game. So I was getting a bit nervous, but obviously we got through it, like you said. With games like that, that's how you've got to do it. Especially when you've got, like we keep saying, these big games against Atletico and Liverpool on the horizon. You can't pay too much attention to the ones before or after. You've got to focus your efforts on those, I think. So yeah.
If we go in, here's a good one. We looked at the partnership yesterday, Ake and Laporte, both left-footed players, which doesn't really work. And I think that sort of affected Laporte more because he was playing on the right-hand side, wasn't he, of course? So I think that might have affected a bit of his display. I'm going to be devil's advocate here. If these two guys, because of we obviously Stones was on the bench, so we're hoping he's going to come back. But would you be confident if we've got an Ake Laporte centre-half partnership in the next 2 or 3 weeks? Would you be confident of us progressing in certain competitions? Just as before we move on, what do you say to that partnership?
Well, you are being devil's advocate, aren't you? There's quite a lot of things to say. I mean, for Atletico's matches, yeah, I'd be confident because I don't think they'll be coming out and attacking us that much. I think because they're so defensive, it doesn't matter who we've got in the back line as long as where you go the other end and actually break through their defence. But for the Liverpool matches, obviously, it gets you a bit nervous. But Laporte's even played at left back before at Liverpool, and we haven't played that bad. So it's not the end of the world. But equally, I think Pep will probably end up going with Laporte and Stones. But I'd rather see Stones and Ake, to be fair. But that's the one combination we haven't really seen much of. So I don't know if that would work or not. But that's the one I'd hope for on Tuesday. Obviously, we'd want Diaz, but
yeah, that goes without saying. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. Yeah, so Burnley 0, City 2. We'll take it back to the top of the table. That that lead that Liverpool had, that 2-point gap didn't last long, did it? Hey, we soon knocked that out of the park, didn't we, guys? 2 points is no good. We soon took that over. So anyway, yes, we did what we had to do after, as you said, that Liverpool victory earlier in the day. Right, let's talk about very quickly before we sort of move on to other couple of games. And Andrei Kravchuk? Andrei Kravchuk is actually training with the under-23s. He's from Torpedo Moscow. I think he played at a youth level, didn't he, with Zinchenko back in the day, this guy. Just an interesting thing. It's good to see, obviously, some of these players. I think the Premier League vetoed Moses coming to Burnley on the basis that obviously it would affect the integrity of the Premier League. People are trying to make certain links. I don't think City have done anything wrong, because this guy isn't going to play for us, is he? He's literally just going to train with the under-23s and keep fit. So there's no potential that he'll be playing. Not even sure, Eddie, if he'll be playing under-23s. He's just training with them, isn't he? I think this Kravchuk guy.
Yeah, I don't know that much myself, I'll be honest, but I think he is just training at the minute, and he's only there because obviously he's a friend of Zinchenko's, and the club are letting Zinchenko do this, and yeah, it gives him refuge, and like you say, it keeps him fit. If he's an upcoming player, obviously he wants to stay in shape while everything else is going on. So yeah, I think it's a nice move from the club, to be fair. But yeah,
I think more clubs should perhaps do it if we get the opportunities to do that. Obviously, the City say it was to continue his fitness and development as a footballer. So I mean, there's certainly not many better places to develop as a footballer than City's sort of under-23s, who are quite a talented bunch, aren't they? Let's be honest about it. But as I say, it's obviously just one of the problems we're having at the moment with these players. Some are still stuck, of course, over in various areas of the world and having difficulty getting out and getting clubs to sort of take them on. So perhaps more clubs should really be looking into what they can do for these players, not signing them to play, but at least getting them over, getting them safe, and trying to get them over this country to be involved and still play football to some extent.
Yeah, you said it yourself there. I completely agree with that, definitely.
Right, Laporte, we did mention Laporte before, mate. Most points ever after 100 games, 254 points. That's a pretty impressive, isn't it, Ed? That's a pretty impressive stat. I mean, it was Edison and Drogba before was 246 from their first 100 games in the Premier League. So that's a pretty good record for Laporte to hold, isn't it? I mean, so only 46 points dropped out of 300. Impressive.
Very impressive, yeah. I think he came at the right time, didn't he? Because he came halfway through that Centurion season in January, didn't he? So he's been there at the right time. I think the only other player that timed it even better than him was Danilo. Do you remember him, the Brazilian right back? He seemed to come for two seasons, and he was there when we won like all the trophies. Which always makes me laugh. But yeah, Laporte's done all right, hasn't he? But,
done great stuff. And Sterling, congratulations to him as well. He's achieved 72 assists. That was his 71st and 72nd against Burnley, and 128 goals. So another guy who gets a little bit of stick, but hey, that's not bad going either, is it, Ed?
No, 200 goal contributions isn't anything to be sniffed at. So yeah, they both get a lot of stick, but it just shows. I think some of the fan base are almost spoiled when you see how well they're actually doing by the numbers. Yeah, you've got to give them praise. So.
Brilliant. Right, let's talk Champions League, Ed. Let's talk the quarter-final first leg. I hate first legs at home. I like to go to a game and know what's going on. And obviously, we still, whatever happens, we won't know what's going on because we've got a second leg to come, of course. But that's how it goes, and that we can do about it. So we're playing Atletico de Madrid, as I see on the thing. I just call them Atletico Madrid myself, but there you go. 5th of April, 2022, 8 p.m. Yes, interestingly enough, we do have certain players, and this referee that we've got from Romania apparently likes a booking or two. He's actually booked 11 players in one Champions League game fairly recently, and we have 3 players who will miss the next leg if they are booked. I think Atletico have 5, so it's not too bad. It's not just us walking a tightrope, but Cancelo will miss the next leg if he's booked. KDB will miss the next leg if he's booked, and Jesus will miss the next leg if he's booked. So KDB's a pretty interesting one, Eddie. Do you know the rules about this? Do they actually get to a stage where they get them rescinded so it doesn't matter anymore? I mean, KDB's been on this for 2 or 3 games now. What is it? Is it at the semi-final stage, or is that what happens? Do you know anything about it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if it's the same as the last few years, it's the semi-final stage. But I think they've changed quite a few rules, obviously with the away goals thing. So I don't know if they've altered this as well. But yeah, the KDB one's a worry because you think of how many tackles that Jesus comes on and does, being enthusiastic and work rate, and you say he's probably likely to get a yellow. And same with Cancelo being a defender. But you'd say, oh, De Bruyne's not likely to get one. But typical City would be him to get one, and we miss our best player for the second leg. So it's a bit of a worry. But as you said, Atletico are on 5. And they are a bit like the Spanish Burnley, aren't they? So they do a lot of fouls.
Well, we'll talk about their discipline in a minute. It's not great, is it? Well, a manager Simeone, I wouldn't expect a bunch of choir boys. In all fairness, but when he's your manager, obviously Pep just have the edge over Simeone. He leads 2-1 currently on matches won, so he's 2-1 up. Hopefully we can make that 3-1 on Tuesday. Atletico are doing very well, actually. I think I was listening to something on TalkSport about a month back about how the back 3 obviously got Savic there, haven't we? We know a lot about him, of course, but Simeone can play a back 5, he can play a back 3, he can switch around. I think he's an excellent manager. He seems to get the best out of what plays. All right, the season's not been as great as last season, but obviously you can't doing these back-to-backs, even not just the Premier League, but other division, other countries as well. Certainly with a team like Atletico, would be very difficult anyway. And I think since the United draw at their place, the 1-1, I think they won 5 league games, and obviously they beat United at Old Trafford as well. So they can't be underestimated, Ed, can they? They're a very, very organised team. They have their own little snidey tactics, the histrionics, the wasting time, the little things. I mean, you can't, and we're not good against these sort of teams, Ed. That's what worries me. We're not good against these teams that are quite capable of defending, can sort of score some nice goals as well. Are you as worried as I am on this one?
I'm always worried about the Champions League, whoever we come up against, because it's like a curse to City. But Atletico especially, I've always liked watching them for years. They've kind of been my Spanish team. And yeah, they haven't had the best season this year, but both them and Barcelona, who have had poorer seasons, have come back into it recent weeks in La Liga and won a lot more games than they were doing. So I think they're coming into this match with better form. Atletico are one of the best teams of the last decade. Are they as good as they used to be? No. Were they as good as they used to be last year, even though they won the league? I'd still say no. So I'm not too worried, but then I am worried because it's the Champions League. It's a defensive team. I think Simeone's quite unpredictable. But then on the flip side of that, I watched both games that United played against them in the last round. United drew one of them, which they should have won. Away, they had a lot of chances. And then the game at Old Trafford, which they lost, I think it's Elanga, the Swedish guy up front, the young kid. Yeah. He had 3 or 4 chances that even Sterling or Jesus would have put away. And he just
must have been bad. Must have been bad if you're making that comparison.
But yeah, he had a bit of a bad game, even though he's in the right place each time. Right. So what I'm trying to say is that United aren't clever at the minute, are they? So the fact that they should have probably had the better of Atletico settles me down a bit. But you can't be cocky in this competition, or any for that matter, but especially this one. So I'm a bit nervous, but it's positive nerves, shall we say?
Well, you've cheered me up a bit, mate. Anyway, that's for sure. You've actually made me a bit more confident now looking at that. I mean, they're one of these teams, aren't they, that are willing. I've been looking at some of the stats of the recent games, and they're quite willing to give up possession, which they will do against us. They're not bothered about that. They're quite willing to have less shots and less possession and less passes than the teams they're playing, and yet they win a hell of a lot of games, even though they do. And that's how brilliant they are. They just can soak up stuff and get teams. I don't think they're quick on the break as such, but obviously with Felix and Griezmann, I mean, Griezmann's got a good Champions League record anyway, hasn't he? He's got an excellent Champions League record. I think Felix is one of the guys who's on like KDB's on a booking where he'll miss the next game if he gets booked. So he's one of their five, if you like, who faces that threat. So, yeah, they are a team that can cause City problems, but you made me feel a lot better with what you're saying. The interesting thing for us, obviously, we're not going to have Walker again, obviously, for this one. Now, Pep was trying Stones at right back, but that's when we had a fully fit Diaz and Laporte. We don't have that anymore for this Atletico game. It's very doubtful we're going to have Diaz for this Atletico game. We possibly could have Stones, who was on the bench against Burnley. So, obviously, we're going to look at the teams. If we're going to look at the team City are going to play, it could be very interesting. I mean, obviously Ederson's going to play. There's no way Stefan's going to step in. So that's. I think we can be quite safe on saying Ederson's going to start this game. What about this for the back four? I'm thinking obviously Cancelo will come in at right back. Stones and Hope Stones, if he's fit enough, which he should be, as I said, he was on the bench. Surely he's going to be fit enough. Stones, Laporte, and then is Zinchenko going to come in on the other side? Has he got any other alternatives?
Yeah, I think the Zake is an alternative at left back because he hasn't really played there that much for City, but at other clubs, at Bournemouth, he started off at left back, and I think at Watford and Chelsea, when he did actually get matches, he used to play left back, so he can do it. But then, yeah, I think Zinchenko, obviously, I don't know where his head is at because of what's going on with Ukraine, but he's another player, irrespective of that seems to get a lot of slating from other fans, but last year, I think he was instrumental in getting to the Champions League final against Paris, especially. He was immense in both games. So I'd like to see Zinchenko playing there. But then there's the argument that Cancelo is more comfortable at left back, and if he's on a yellow card, like you say, maybe it wouldn't be clever to put him at right back in a more uncomfortable position. But without Walker, what other choice do you have? So I'd go with Cancelo and Zinchenko at fullbacks. And I'd like I said earlier, I stick by this. I'd like to see Stones and Ake, but I think it'll be Stones and Laporte, like you said. I prefer the other.
Yeah, I think Pep will stick by Laporte. I don't think he's going to do anything different. He's certainly not going to put Ferner in there instead of Rodri. Is he sure he's going to play Rodri in this one? We can forget the Sporting game. That was purely because of the circumstances, of course. So I think we're fairly sure with Rodri in there, aren't we? I don't think there's any problem with Rodri being in the middle there. The interesting one for me is the next really five players, if you like, the sort of middle and attacking players, if you like. We haven't got any attackers, have we? Let's be honest about it. I mean, he brought Gundogan plays most of the European games. I can see that Gundogan will play in this because he played at Burnley, so I think he was giving him a little bit of a warm up for this. Would you agree with that Gundogan's going to get a game?
Yeah, and I think you're right on Rodri as well, like you say, because Rodri used to be at Atletico Madrid. He's Spanish, I think that's a clever player to have definitely in the team. He could be the difference, to be honest, because of how quickly Atletico can break. But yeah, going forward, Gundogan, I'd see playing there. Probably Gundogan and De Bruyne.
So KDB and Gundo in that sort of behind the front three, if you like. Now the front three, you've got a choice of six, really, haven't you? You've got Bernardo, who for me is a shoo-in, so he's going to be there. And the others are a bit. Even Mahrez, I think he's got to be a shoo-in. Surely he's another guy who revels in European games. So you're only really left with one other spot, aren't you? So obviously for that you've got Foden, Jesus, Grealish, and Sterling, of course, all fighting for that one spot. Based on recent form, I mean, I've put Foden here, but I've not been happy with his recent form. But then again, would you risk Sterling again, who had a pretty good game in the last game? Would you put Sterling up there? But who would play in that sort of more central role, if you like, or would they switch around and swap around? But what are your thoughts?
I think I'd put Foden at left wing, irrespective of form, because I think in the Champions League he never lets you down, really. I think Mahrez has to play at right wing. He's probably been City's best player this season. I don't think many people would disagree with that. Not just because of the goals and the assists, but just his overall play. He's been on a different planet this year. So I think those two at wing, and then you'd probably start not De Bruyne, sorry, Bernardo at centre forward, but he could swap with De Bruyne a bit like what we saw last year in the Champions League, where those two took it in turns to kind of go centrally. But then obviously Foden swaps with them as well a bit, doesn't he? So I think that'll be the lineup, to be honest. But I could see if Sterling's playing, why he's playing. But I'd prefer Foden, I think.
Well, will Pep sort of go have an eye on the Liverpool game with this Atletico game? Will he have? Would you think he'll have any? It's 5 days after, isn't it? Surely he's just going to play his best team in this and play his best team against Liverpool. He's got a 5-day gap between a home game in Europe, which is what you always want, and then a home game in the league. He's not going to do anything silly, is he? I know we can't have any guarantees of Pep not doing anything a little bit off the wall or a bit weird, but he's not going to do anything daft, is he, Ed, on this one?
I hope not, but we said he wouldn't in the Champions League final, didn't we? And we saw Sterling on the team sheet. So, but no, I think it should be fine because, as you've outlined, there's a long gap between the two matches. They're both at the Etihad, and I think the onus is on Man City to get this game coming up sorted so that when they go away to the Wanda Metropolitano Stadium in Madrid, that everything's sorted. So if they can really try hard on Tuesday and get a 3-0, something like that, then they know that the pressure's off for the week after, so that they don't have to try as hard, meaning that they've still got a strong lineup for Liverpool again in the FA Cup. So yeah, I think he'll be playing his strongest lineup. But if they take a big lead early on, then he can always sub them off, can't he? So.
Well, that sort of brings me nice on to my next question, which was basically, is a draw a disaster?
I think not losing's not a disaster.
I mean, going back to their place, on the fact that United should have beaten, with perhaps a bit more pressure on them at their own place with their own fans. If we get a draw, I mean, you're saying 2 or 3-0 would be nice. Of course it would, but if we end up drawing this because of nerves or for whatever reason, or obviously their 5 at the back works and it keeps us out. There's no away goal rule now, is there, at all? So that's not going to come into this at all. But I don't think a draw's a disaster, but I would love, like you said, a 2 or 3 goal winning margin.
Yeah, I feel like these sort of rounds where you're playing the home leg first works better with away goals counting. Because obviously when you're away and you're in a big stadium like that, the pressure of the fans, but then all of a sudden you get 1 goal, it changes the complexion of the tie. Whereas obviously now that doesn't exist, when we're going over to Madrid without a great scoreline, if that's what's to happen on Tuesday, then the pressures are going to be ramped up. So I think they really need to get stuff sorted in the first leg, meaning that a draw wouldn't be a disaster, but it certainly wouldn't be ideal. But we could certainly go across there and win. So you've got to win this game, but if it's not by the biggest of margins, then so be it.
I mean, they do have a good record, and obviously they beat United, as we know, but obviously a couple of years ago they knocked Liverpool out as well, didn't they? Anfield took it to extra time and beat them in the Champions League. So they do have a reasonable record in England recently. And obviously, but again, they're not at home, they're not away the second leg in this one. So it's an interesting dynamic. It's a little bit different to what they've done before. Can I get you on a score prediction? What are you going to go for this one?
For the first time in a long time, I genuinely don't have a clue. I don't know. I think it'd be scrappy. I think it'll go one or two ways. I think it'll either be 2-1, 1-0, a 1-goal scenario, or by some miracle, a bit like what happened against Sporting Lisbon, we'll go into quite a big lead and shock everyone in the first half. Because I think with a team like Atletico, and I've said this for ages, like Chelsea as well, once you get the first goal and you get it early on, they're a bit done for because they have to come out and attack you, a bit like Burnley did at the weekend. Yeah. And those sort of teams that are just used to defending, when they have to attack, you get in behind, you exploit them even further. But I think they'll stand firm, to be honest. So I see probably 1-2-0, 2-1, but mostly in the second half, I think. I think the first half's going to be quite a nasty 0-0.
Yeah, sussing each other's out, sort of getting each other's, what we're like. I've gone for 2-1 for City. But I'll be happy with the 3-0 or a 2-0. But I've gone for 2-1. Although, as I say, I've got confidence either way. As long as we don't lose. I mean, if we lose, then obviously that confidence will drain away. Because imagine it over there, the pressure will be tremendous. So we've got to get at least a draw, but a nice 1 goal, preferably 2 or 3 goal margin would be very nice on that one. Right, let's talk Liverpool. We have to talk Liverpool, don't we? It's top versus second, 10th of April 2022 at the Etihad with a crowd. I mean, last year was it a 2-2, wasn't it? Last year, a bit of a funny game last year. We both sort of decided a draw was okay at one stage, didn't we, last year, and left it at that. But that was different circumstances, of course, to this. I remember thinking back in January when things were going very well for us, we were well clear. All right, we might have only been in real terms about 5 points clear if these lot had won the games in hand. But I was thinking if we can go into that game 9 points clear, I won't mind. That's what I was thinking back in January. So we're here now, and we're only 1 point clear. So not as much as I'd hoped. And the big question for this one, will Diaz be fit for it? What do you think, Ed? Do you think he was back in training, wasn't he? Surely he's going to be fit for this one. What do you think?
He might be fit for it, but I suppose Pep never seems to rush players in. He likes to bring them off the bench. So it'd be intriguing to see against Atletico on Tuesday if he's even on the bench, for 10 minutes at the end.
Yeah.
But I doubt he'd rush him forward into that game. I could see him maybe coming off the bench against Atletico in a week's time, the away game, and then maybe playing against him at the FA Cup. But I think it'll be too early for him. But like you say, a point. I mean, you'd rather be a point ahead than their position. But...
Yeah, because it's interesting. Klopp's not got the greatest. He has come to the Etihad. He has come to the Etihad and been a little bit more negative and gone for the fact of not getting beat rather than trying to win a game. He's not been very brave sometimes, and obviously being a point behind. I mean, it's a say he does come for a draw. It is thinking that obviously he'll still be a point behind us. He's not going to be 4 points if he comes for a draw, and believing the momentum is with this Liverpool. Let's face it, at this point in time, you will say yes, the momentum is with Liverpool still, even though we beat Burnley, but we've still not built up that sort of momentum that Liverpool are building up at the moment. Head of steam, if you like. I mean, they've gone 10 games now on 10 victories on the trot. Is it for the 5th time? They've equalled our little record of doing it in the Premier League fight. Winning at least 10 games on the trot. So will they be happy with that? Will a draw be better for them, or will it be better for us? What do you think about that?
I think it's a weird one. I think a draw benefits and doesn't benefit both teams, to be honest. I don't think they would be happy with a draw, to be honest, but Klopp has only ever won the Etihad in the Premier League once, and that was the season against Pellegrini before Pep came in. And every time since in the league, he's either lost or drawn. So it's an interesting fact because, like you said, he doesn't always go for it when he comes here. I know they won in the Champions League second leg at the Etihad, but even that was a weird game. Yeah. So I'll be honest, I don't see City losing it, which isn't something I've said often against Liverpool. Usually I'm terrified, but I think it'll be a draw or a win. And it was just watching bits of the Watford game against Liverpool at the weekend. Watford had so many chances that if that had been a City play, you'd have thought that's in the back of the net. And there was one chance they had just before Jota opened the scoring for Liverpool, which broke the deadlock. And Watford were clear through, and it was a good save by Alisson in the end. But it just shows they're not infallible. You can definitely get at them. So I'm confident, but it depends how much energy it takes against Atletico and how tired or how many injuries or going into the match. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think back to the Anfield game, of course, which was a 2-2, wasn't it, at Anfield? We were far superior. I mean, we actually should have really won that game overall. We were the better team in an Anfield with a crowd in, which is quite a unique experience for us to sort of dominate them like that. Of course, we beat them during COVID, didn't we? An empty Anfield, we stuffed them then. But yeah, we were better than them now. Now you're talking about the Watford game. So again, it's something I am worried about. But again, listening to you made me a little bit more confident on this one as well. So we have to talk about the team. We have to work on the basis that Diaz might not be quite fit enough, and Pep won't play him. So it really leaves, as long as obviously we're recording this before certain other games took place. Well, obviously we'll have Walker back. There's no doubt that Mr. Walker will step back into this team. Of course, Mr. Ederson will be in goal. That's no doubt. But again, we're probably stuck with a Stones-Laporte partnership if Diaz isn't quite ready. There's no big problem with that, is there?
No. It depends how they play against Atletico. Obviously, a lot of this lineup is hypotheticals on that. But obviously, if Ake or Laporte or Stones have a good game against Atletico, I'm sure they'll keep the place for the weekend. Same with Zinchenko or whoever's at left back, because you could say, it'd be Cancelo easily, but you never know. Like if Cancelo gets run off his feet against Atletico, they might give him a rest and let Zinchenko come in for this one. So
yeah, I mean, I must admit, I put Cancelo, and I can't see Atletico Madrid running him ragged. In all fairness, so I put Cancelo quite comfortably in there. Obviously, he's got to put Rodri third. It's not going to come in unless something's wrong with Rodri. But the interesting one for me, I think Gundogan's probably won't get a game in this one. I think he'll Bernardo and KDB in that sort of middle pocket. I think Gundogan will miss out on this one. What do you think?
Yeah. I think Bernardo and KDB, as you said, would play in midfield, because I think then that allows like your Grealish, your Sterling. I don't know about right wing, maybe Mahrez to go up front, but I think Bernardo won't be playing in the front three. I think he'll be lower down in midfield. But Rodri, I don't know. I could see Fernandinho coming in as club captain. It's one of the roughest games, isn't it? Liverpool City.
There's physicality, isn't it? And that perhaps he's more. I mean, Rodri's sort. I'm not saying he isn't big lad and he can't get stuck in, but he does sort of avoid it somehow, and Ferner gets rightly involved in it. That's a good point with Ferner. Yeah.
The leadership Fernandinho brings as well, especially in Diaz's absence, it'll be crucial in a title race like Kompany would have brought. So, to be honest, I'd rather see Fernandinho play there, because I think Rodri will definitely play against Atletico both games, because, like we said earlier, Spanish used to play for him. I think he has to play both games. So, I think from a rotation perspective, title race, leadership, I think I'd rather see Fernandinho there. But other than that, I'd agree with everything else you've put forward.
Yeah, the question mark obviously, I think Foden will play based on the fact that he had such a good game against them last time, and even if he's not quite at it, I think he'll love to play against Liverpool in the same way he loves to play against United. I think obviously that's his sort of game where he'll step up. I don't think there's any doubt Mahrez, if fit, will be playing in this one. So it really, I mean, obviously Sterling's the quandary, isn't he, against Liverpool, because he didn't. I think he played okay. Did he get a game at Anfield? I'm not too sure. I'm sure he played okay the last time we played him, but not great, not brilliant, but okay. But he's some sort of psychological block, wasn't there, for a long time with Sterling? I'm not 100% sure he's got rid of it. Would you be surprised to see Sterling playing, or would you want Sterling to play in this one?
Yeah, as you were saying, I think there was definitely a psychological thing for years against Liverpool, because with it being his old team, he never seemed to properly break it. But then I think it was the Community Shield a couple of years ago when he scored against them. And then since then, he seems to not worry as much about the opponent when we play them. But I'd like to see Foden, because I think Foden's taken on Leroy Sané's mantle of terrorising Liverpool whenever he plays them. Because Sané used to get so many goals, didn't he, against Liverpool? And Foden's done that since now. So I think Foden has to be there. I think Mahrez does. But then I'd like to see Grealish play, I think, in that match, especially if he's had a rest against Atletico. So I think maybe you could even play Foden more centrally, whether that be in midfield and push Bernardo up to centre forward, or maybe play Foden at centre forward, because he's done that a few times. But I think I'd like to see Grealish and Mahrez on the wings. But as you said, Foden has to be involved in some form. So.
Well, I think Grealish is another one of those players that would love to play against Liverpool. Again, just one of those English players that I think any English player, when you talk about big games, playing against Liverpool, he certainly did well for Villa, didn't he, in that game, was it last season against him? And I think he's another one, as you said, if it was a choice between Sterling and Grealish, personally, I'd go for Grealish on the basis that, all right, Sterling's English, but as I said, we've still got a few little question marks about him against Liverpool, and question marks about Sterling anyway. And I say, even though Grealish didn't set the world alight the last game we played, I think he'd revel in this one, or whichever the word is, make hay in this one. I think he'd love it. I think he'd love to try and tease the Liverpool players and get the free kicks. And I think he'll do. I think he could be the guy to start rather than Sterling. Although I did have Sterling in initially. So yeah, I agree. I think Grealish would not be a surprise against Liverpool. Can I ask you for a prediction, mate, on the score for this one before we finish today? Are you brave enough to, or a winning margin, perhaps, or? Put it this way? Will it be the end of the world if Liverpool beat us? What do you think of City's chance? Let's just say that before we do a score prediction. If Liverpool beat us, which will mean they'll go 2 points ahead, they'll have a far better goal difference, probably by about 6 or 7, as long as they don't score a cricket score. Is that the end of City's hopes, mate, if Liverpool beat us, or do you think we'll sit on the shoulder and Liverpool be under the pressure then? And they supposedly have got tougher games left than we have. I've not sort of analysed it into any great depth, but is it the end of the world if Liverpool win this?
No. In a word, no. I think there's 7 games left after this one at the weekend. Liverpool do have a tougher run in easily. They've still got to play United, Spurs. They've got Everton, which is a tough game for them because of it being a derby. They've got Wolves on the final day of the season, another tough team. I think they've got Villa as well. And I think it's a more difficult run-in. It'd only be a 2-point lead. But the one thing I don't buy into is a lot of City fans were saying, we'd be on the heels all the way. We're not that type of team. We're the team that stays in front and keeps winning, not the team that's chasing. And that's not me being cocky. I just mean I don't know if City would be able to do that because we haven't seen them like.
Yeah, we're not this season. I don't think we've proved we can do it this season. I think other seasons we probably have, but we've not been consistent enough this season.
Under Pep, we never really seem to do that, or any of the other managers in recent years. Title races that we've won, we're usually the one in front, apart from maybe 2012, but that's obviously different. But yeah, I don't think it's the end of the world, but I think we probably still could easily make it up because I don't see Liverpool winning all their 7 games, whereas City, apart from an away trip to Wolves, they have West Ham and a few others, but I think we've got the better run. And as for score predictions, I don't think Liverpool will win, but I wouldn't be so bold as to say City will win. I think it'll either be a draw, or if we do win it, it'll be by a goal. So I'll either go with 1-1 or 2-1 City, I think. I think that's brave enough.
I think. Well, I'm going to be even brave, and I'm going to say 3-2 for City. So, I hope not. Don't know where that comes from, but obviously, I might have 50p on that and see what price we get for 3-2 for City. Right. Well, there you go. We'll know anyway. This time, sort of next week, as a recording this, we'll know how that one's gone and how things are going on for the week after, of course, with even bigger in theory, even bigger games to come as well in the following few days after that. Anyway, thanks, Ed. Thanks for spending your time and joining us, and hopefully everyone out there enjoyed it. Thanks for coming on, Ed.
No, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure as usual.
That's absolutely brilliant. Hopefully, we'll have 1 or 2 more next week. So we've got the actor's doing his stage play. That'll be over, and you might be able to get a full house at one stage over the next 2 or 3 weeks. But my appreciation for Ed to coming on and joining me today, and I hope you've enjoyed this little In Good Company podcast for Manchester TV. Of course, part of the local TV network, and we're back next week. Dead cheerful. It probably won't be the Sunday because obviously. We'll have a certain game. We'll all be recovering or getting home after the game. So it may be on the Monday evening or whatever next week, guys. But tune back in if you can, or catch up on YouTube or watch us on local TV. My thanks to Ed, and this is Bernard. Until we meet again, guys, all I ever ask is please stay safe, Blues. Thanks for watching, guys.